Good day, friends. This is a voice-only video because a face, as you know by now, is just a distraction. First of all, thank you for being here. Your presence is very much appreciated. Today's topic is maybe a little controversial, but I believe that we are screwing the next generation. You cannot see it, but there's no question mark. It's not a question, it is a statement. We royally screwed the next generations. I don't see our youngest generation looking too good. Not for psychological reasons, mind you, but for cultural motives. The reason is that this is the first generation that has no clear view of its future. Past generations had dreams and aspirations, and had a general understanding of how to reach those dreams. Our future, although not always bright, was visible. It was within reach. It was reachable. We knew that if we put ourselves to it, there were means and a way to build a decorous life path. As the philosopher Galimberti appropriately stated, my generation was lucky. The future was there. It was visible and it was within reach. The future offered opportunities for those that wanted to seize them. This generation lacks opportunities. Better yet, the opportunities are there, but far, far scarcer. The promises, on the other hand, are abundant. No opportunities and tons of promises is a recipe for disaster. It will call for social unrest eventually. Because for one person that is successful as a social media model or influencer, millions are disappointed. It is a generation for the fit and the beautiful. The ugly and smart have no visibility. I feel that Nietzsche perfectly described the tribulations of this generation when he described nihilism as the lack of scope, as a future that is beyond sight, and the why of existence seems to have no answer. Today's outlook is, if the future holds no promises, why even put in the effort? What do I strive for? And worst of all, if there is no future, why stay alive and bear the angst? All values seem to depreciate, which in itself is not the greatest of issues, as all values are just social coefficients by which we reduce conflicts. Before the French Revolution, values were birth-based. After the Revolution became equality and citizenship. Values change, but the world keeps evolving, so values sort of have to play along in this. I'm afraid that substance abuse, be it alcohol or drugs, is so much a recreational activity as much as it is an anesthetic to help face the lack of vision and anxiety thereof. Let us revert back briefly to the issue relative to social media. Social media are the here and now. The past is gone and uninteresting, and the future is only a source of stress. Therefore, this generation lives a live 24/7 experience relative to the visible and the immediate. Social media are the best way to live the present and always be connected to what is happening now. Not yesterday and not tomorrow, now. Speak exclusively present tense, because any attempt to project one's imagination in the future is a cause of suffering. How did we get here? We got here because our kids increasingly grew up in broken homes. Over 1/3 of this generation has divorced or separated parents. Splitting up, obviously, is far better than constant fights. But let's not assume that our youngsters do not notice. They do notice, and they don't accept easily. Our kids actually suffer from separations. Then comes the pilgrimage between parents, choosing the one that offers the most gratifications. We compete as to which parent can offer the most gifts. Actually, even when the parents are happily together, we tend to shower our children with material items of every nature. By the way, these presents substitute unspoken words, the ones that fathers do not speak anymore because they get bored easily with little kids, and mothers limit their communications to ascertain the physical well-being of their kids, avoiding existential questions like, are you happy? Are you in a good mood? And so on, as if we fear the answers. These gifts are detrimental to the concept of desire, because desires are only present when there's a lacking. I obviously only desire what I have not. What I have I enjoy, but there's no need to desire it. It is no wonder that some teenagers are indifferent to everything. Who instilled that indifference in their kids? Who extinguished their every desire before they even manifested them by showering them with gifts at every possible occasion? The results are there to be seen and are actually more correlated than you could imagine. They follow a geometric progression. A small satisfaction of a desire leads to an exponential dose of indifference down the line. Like addicts, our kids get accustomed to having their desire fulfilled before even asking. And the threshold of satisfaction is moved higher and higher, and indifference trots right along. What did we teach this generation? Apparently, very little, because they can't even seem to be able to describe their own suffering. We have not been able to teach them the difference between good and evil. The result is that we hear in the news of kids that cannot develop a psychic reaction to their behavior. They seem incapable of recognizing good and evil. They do not even recognize it on their own anymore. They need to be told when they cross the line. There is a very high level of apathy. Emotions that should have been learned have not been acquired. We should have given examples and material that could have developed their empathy. There's no storytelling anymore that teach the worth of values or the difference between good and bad. No more nanas to tell their nephews fairy tales that taught us how to explain feelings and emotions. Nanas are too busy on Instagram or with Botox. If we have not taught the youngest generation what pain is, how love is expressed in all its forms, if we are not exposed to anxiety and angst, if we do not show how courage is manifested, how hope can conquer fear and desperation, and what suicide actually is, how in the world can we complain about what this generation has become? If we had taught them all this, when they meet the facts of life, they would at least recognize them and ask what was going on. They would know what hit them. They would have the words to describe what is going on. Because when you know the disease, you can try to find a cure. If you have no idea, then you become what we see day in and day out. You hurt, but you do not know how to call the malady. You do not know how to get better. You don't know the strategy to get better. This generation is actually defenseless against the pain of the mind. We have screwed this generation because we have individuals that could biologically generate new life as young as age 15, but cannot procreate until at least 20 years later for lack of funds to support a family. No housing available, no mortgage, no salaries. All these factors are going to destroy our world as we know it, because a lack of a natality is the beginning of the decline of a civilization. The decadence is real. Why are we faced with this decadence? Because we do not incentivize this generation. We do not invest them with trust and acceptance. When they reach our workplace, they meet our photocopiers, our archives, and tons of useless paperwork. Alternatively, we relegate them to future-depriving wages, confined in the gig economy, which offers no prospect of a career. But they are in the prime of their creating impulses. Einstein discovered his formula at age 24, not when he was 60. Leopardi, one of the greatest poets, wrote the Infinito when he was 21. Can you imagine a 21-year-old today writing a poem that will be read 300 years from now? No, because we give them marginal assignments in their prime, when their inventive energy is at its peak, when they have a huge creative advantage. We have history on its head. If our younger generations, in their free time, prefer to play video games instead of looking for earning opportunities, it either means one or two things. They either have too much money or they have no vision for the future. And since we know that they barely make ends meet, we screwed with their future. If the young generations are the future, why are we keeping mummies in the boardrooms? Let a breath of fresh air into the stale control rooms. How about restaurants that force the burden of the survival of their staff on the customers by forcing staff to a living wage based on gratuities? These restaurateurs definitely do not paint a future that promotes long-term planning. I'm saddened that a single source of income is not sufficient anymore to grant some sort of economic and therefore emotional stability. We indirectly depleted the vocational educational institutions by glorifying the high school to college path. Vocational training has become the layman's choice. The social ladder has forced us out of electricians, plumbers, and skilled machinists, to give you a few examples, who, by the way, have no need whatsoever to look for a second or third source of income. Let us admit that colleges have become outrageously expensive playgrounds where little is taught to make sure no one flunks out and stops paying tuition. More and more families will drown in lifelong debt, chasing that dream job that only exists in their minds, indebted for life for a worthless piece of paper. The only desirable university degrees are the scarce ones, the rare ones, the pieces of paper issued by top colleges. But let's keep this interesting topic for another video. As parents, it seems that we have been afraid to educate as we were educated. We know it nearly broke us, and we distrust our kids to be able to bear the same treatment. We are afraid of the consequences of being too harsh, and we do damages by being too soft. This generation, mind you, is not too soft. It is just unaccustomed to sacrifice and completely disenchanted. It seems that making men and women out of our youngsters went out of style, as we preferred the cultivation of competencies instead of growing the individual. We are more interested in what one is able to do instead of what one is. We lack the luxury of being able to choose between technology or no technology, because if communication goes through technological means, you cannot do without it. Technology has already invaded our world, and economics has become the decisor, since politics had to abdicate to its financer. Technology has made this generation ask itself, what am I good for? Instead of, who am I? We have been turned utilitarian. We are identified for what we are good for. This generation has lost concepts like inner beauty, concept of the truth for the sake of the truth, what is right and what is wrong. We only know our use. We only know what we are good at. We only seem to understand, what am I good for? As we have become accustomed to value our usefulness as our sole driving force. It is technology, the new media, that created social distancing, not COVID-19. We used to have to move out of the house to meet anyone and look them in the eyes. Now we have to run back indoors to a computer to meet strangers, while we do not even recognize our neighbors anymore. We seldom speak eye to our classmates. We chat with them through a screen for F's sake. Technology is no meaningless feature of our presence. It is actually the pinnacle of human rationale. It is the way we reach the maximum of our scope with the least effort and lowest amount of resources. That is a common trait shared with capitalism. I never thought I was going to say this, which at least still has the love of profit and the love of wealth. Technology, being impersonal, has no such love. If we become addicted to technology, we will only care about usefulness, efficiency, and productivity. Not only are we screwing the future of next generations, we are impoverishing them too, as human beings. To conclude and summarize, if one income is insufficient for a decorous living, it's not this generation's fault. It is us that failed them. Just like we failed them on climatic issues, it is the generations that led to this mess who should take the blame, not the ones bearing the burden of our mistakes. If we force them out of seeing a clear future, we should not be surprised that you rather live the here and now of social media. This is motivation and inspiration in the dark, and that is all I have for you today. Thank you. If you appreciate this channel, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, and maybe sharing with a friend. Again, thank you,